that hang around on these targeted individual calls on talk show. I'm talking in real life. Everybody who enters your life will be a fake, and if you even everybody you come into contact with will hear what's called, like what I've heard called the negative narrative about you. Oh, stay away from him. He's a bad guy. He's a pedophile, a thief, whatever. They'll make something up, and essentially it's like I give you an example. If I would go to a convenience store or a fast food joint, early on, the first time you go there, the service would be good. The second, third time, the service would be terrible, and that's because they get to them. The perpetrators
and that happens
will
in places other than convenience stores. I mean, is it everywhere, Chuck? Is there anywhere that you feel safe?
I want to tell you about one place that was particularly bad. Was the last apartment that I lived at, which was right on Esther Short Park. There were 4 people that lived there. 4 people that I can think of that worked there. 2 guys and 2 women, and they were all in on the harassment. It was totally amazing. This one time they said, well, we need to come up and do our annual checkup or whatever, So they came up, and I thought, well, it'll be one person with a clipboard, Guess what? It was 4 people walked in. They mobbed the place where I lived. The 2 women went into the interior of where I lived. The 2 guys went into the restroom, and I had no idea that they were going to flood in. I'm sorry, I'm being very sporadic about what I'm talking about.
I mean, simply, could you have looked at your lease and seen if that was, unacceptable? Did you sign?
Well, whatever. I guess I signed a lease, but
your house?
When they said they were going to come up, I said okay. When they came in, and I opened the door, and poof, 4 of them flooded in. So they took me by surprise. I'm telling you that did happen. What else do you want to know? Hello?
I want to know why you let 4... Right now, I want to go further into this. What did the 4 people do while they were in the house? I'm assuming
I have no idea.
Yearly inspection.
Can I answer the question? The 2 guys went into the bathroom. I don't know what they were doing in there, or I have no clue what was going on. The 2 women went up to the front. They said essentially they did a write up, and they said I had a what do you call it grill out on the patio. They're said to do something with it. I forget what it was. Oh, I know what it was. Take the canister, the Coleman canister, and put it on the outside. That was it. That was the annual checkup.
Well, don't you think that was a legitimate concern?
I guess it was a legitimate concern, but it would not have required 4 people to flood in, and they took me by surprise.
I agree with you 100%. There's nothing I can follow up on.
Can we please go on to another issue? Because this is going to be a very uninteresting interview if we keep talking about this.
Okay, let's move on.
What else do you want to know?
I really want to know why you feel that everyone that would come into your life personally, since you've released your name, is a potential plant.
I just released my name. I've been live here on TalkShoe.com with my own show. By the way, my old show was 87-161. My current show is 120297. All of the recordings have been taken down, by the way. But I always went by Chuck of Vancouver. I never said it was Chuck Langenberg. That's my real name.
Right, so, and that's been bandied about TalkShoe for at least a month or so, maybe even more than that with
But I lied. I said that's not me. I've been called Chuck A, B, C, and D. So I have no idea. I have no idea. I would have assumed that it would have been Chuck somebody else next week or next month.
Okay, I do have a question for you. In your profile, it says you're 60. I guess that was done a few years ago, so I'm guessing you're 62, 63 years
60
old.
plus, yeah.
Has targeting affected your health in any abnormal way for a man of your age?
I actually probably it's helped me because I did get rid of my vehicle because of it, and I'm half glad I did, because I got rid of my vehicle before I realized I was a TI, a targeted individual. I got rid of my vehicle. I could have gone out and bought a new vehicle at the time, but you know what? They screw with everything you own. They screwed with the RV that I lived in, the recreational vehicle that I lived in.
Okay,
that
can you expand on that? Some some examples of what was done to your RV, if you don't mind.
Okay, can I answer the question? Yeah, the one thing was the heating system. There was a slit in the bottom of the bathtub, so I literally couldn't take a shower. The heating system, so I had to use the Coleman that was in the roof. Fortunately had a heater in it. The water system would not pump water out of the reservoir, so I had to run off city water, which is not a problem because I lived in the city anyway, but I did have visions of maybe one day moving it to the country, but they squelched that when they once again, there's no proof that
you're holding
up.
They
did these things.
There's no proof because you've never seen anybody do these things, but they happen. Although you seem to be around most of the time, or do you go out during the day and?
Well, you have to go out once in a while. You go out once in a while. You go to here to there to the store to wherever. I pretty much worked out of my RV though, and I worked out of my home.
Is getting the word out about gang-stalking?
No, at the time it was internet related.
Okay. Why did you get rid of the vehicle? Are you going to tell me?
They killed the vehicle, by the way.
So common,
I can't prove it that they killed the vehicle. I can't prove that. But I'll tell you an interesting story about that. When I had it, this one day, my truck started to overheat. So I said, I called up somebody to replace the radiator, which they did. And the woman that replaced it said it'll just happen again. And I thought, well, that's an odd thing to say. But you know what? It did happen again. I didn't call her on it, but they kill your vehicle. Whatever you own, they kill it. They want to make sure that you're on foot, So,
So you got rid of the vehicle due to mechanical failure caused by
possibly
people who were targeting you.
But you can never prove. Anything, and that's the big hit on targeting is you're never going to be able to prove it. That's the deal.
Okay,
you're never going to be
I'm going to get a little personal here. Do you feel lonely, Chuck? Sometimes, I mean, it seems like you're by yourself. My question is, do you get sad about this situation? Do you have emotion? I mean, you seem very.
No, I can't. God, could you just let me answer? No, I don't feel lonely. I can. I spend a lot of time on TalkShoe, and TalkShoe, by the way, is the class act to get the word out because you can form two-way relationships. And by the way, most of the people, and I'm sorry because I'm answering your question, but I'm also continuing on about other issues. Most of these TI shows, these targeted individual shows on TalkShoe, almost every one of them is a fake. Everyone, and essentially they want your name. If you're a real targeted individual and you show up here on TalkShoe, the last thing you want to do is give anybody your name or your identity. You don't want to give them your phone number, your email, because they'll get they'll trace route if they find your phone number, they'll find out who you are, even if it's a cell phone or what have you.
But Chuck, you're contradicting yourself because you just outed yourself.
I just outed myself after 3 years. I made a conscious decision to out myself after 3 years. Yes, I realize I'm contradicting myself. I realize that. But what I'm telling people is, if you're gonna go live with what happened to you, there's no way to. They're gonna find out who you are. the scumbags that have these calls, these targeted individual calls.
What do you care about?
I didn't want my name revealed. I mean, it's not exactly. You're embarrassed as a targeted individual. You're embarrassed about people knowing who you are.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to reveal.
I do have a question, Chuck, and I'm going to respect the chat room and ask you this question. Are you going to conduct your show differently now that you're outed, or that you outed yourself? Are you going to... there's a question here from Apocalypse, and he'd like to know if you're going to conduct your show differently now that you're outed.
I'll probably have to, you know. I outed myself on the News Guy show, which, by the way, went... the audio got bad. I assume he got a recording. He shut the show down. And you started this one up. But yeah, I'm going to have to change the way I do my the way I'm going to do my call. It was a conscious decision.
Will you allow people to talk about issues of the day and things like that, or is it still just going to be devoted to?
No. The topic of my show is organized stalking of targeted individuals. And by the way, organized stalking of targeted individuals, that's when you are literally mobbed and harassed. And the one thing to keep in mind is most of these calls around here on TalkShoe.com, almost every call is run by a crazy talker. Different kinds of crazy talkers, every one of them. Every call almost wants to talk about just about the wackiest issues, and I'm not going to get into the examples. If you want to know what those examples are, then go to find out what they are. And I'm not going to say their names because I don't want.
Well, I don't want to
give TalkShoe any reason to take this recording down.
Well,
go ahead.
One person that seems to be the leader seems to be a woman, apparently. So it's said, who lives in California. I know one of those people you're speaking about. No names have to be mentioned, but I'm assuming she is, she's made your list, and she seems to be the leader of some type. So,
she's recently made the list. Yeah, my list of the Dirty Dozen, I call them.
And that person that we're speaking of is fake, is just an intelligent person reading news articles.
A really smart person that reads news articles that are supposed to be about targeted individuals, but like I was listening to her today, and she's just talking about everything and anything. Actually, if you're a targeted individual, I think that's a really hot issue. I think it's really important, and I don't know why you'd want to talk about some issue that was in the newspaper or what have you. Why not talk about the issue of targeted individuals? So that's what I do, but she talks about a lot of stuff. Go ahead. What do you want to know?
Oh, I've heard her talk about things like this Edward Snowden, and I know we're getting into current events, but don't you think someone like that is a targeted individual who deserves to be spoken about over someone's show?
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine, and I agree. She should do that, but I would say a huge percentage of what she talks about does not have anything to do with targeting. A lot of what she talks about.
Oh, I know. There's a lot of small talk there, especially with the woman who is obviously from the New York area. I don't know where she popped up from, but she's obvious. I'll call her out. She's obviously a fraud.
I'm not sure
I agree
what
with you.
woman.
Most of them are frauds. So is there anybody, aside from yourself, Chuck, is there anybody that is getting the word out that is for real? If you want to name them, that's fine. I don't believe that TalkShoe would censor my broadcast.
The one I think is pretty good is Miriam. I believe she's pretty good. I don't know her show number. The only ding on her that I would say is she seems really interested in knowing who you are. And I'm just telling people that are listening to this recording, once again, this recording, I put everything that I have to say is in the public domain and will live forever. And I encourage anybody.
As well, and I agree with you, and this will stay in the public domain.
Okay.
But go ahead, in terms of telling the truth.
Miriam wants to know who you are. These people that want to know who you are in your life, I'm telling you, when you go live with who you are, your life probably will not improve. You're going to get shafted. I'm telling you, 90% of the targeted individual calls here on TalkShoe are fakes. and that's what they want. They either want to sound crazy or they want your name. They